See, I've been using computers for most of my life, and all the time I stuck with Windows, because it's what I grew up on, and honestly, it works just fine. And most people use Windows, so I never really thought about switching. But when I started making my own money, things really changed, and I wasn't really limited to what I had anymore. And I could finally buy a computer that I actually wanted. I'd never owned a Mac before, and to be honest, I always heard they were overpriced and not worth the value, and that's what really kept me away. And I started to look into them, and I realized the battery life and just how long they last, and I got a little curious. So I went to the Apple store to go check one out. And right away, the display, the speakers, the build quality, everything was perfect. It all felt different. It felt really premium. And in that moment, I told myself, let's try something new. And that day, I walked out with an M4 MacBook Air 15-inch. And I'll be real, I'm really happy with my decision, but it wasn't quite as easy at first. Well, my first impressions of the laptop were surprised to say the least. Opening up that box, the whole process felt kind of fun, and it wasn't tedious like most other laptops. I set it up and saw the home screen. I kind of thought to myself, this is absolutely gorgeous. It's sharp, colorful, high res, and you can't see a single pixel. And then I started hitting problems like, how do I even navigate this thing? There's no start key, there's no obvious way to see my apps. I actually had to look up YouTube videos on how to use a MacBook when I bought it, which kind of made me regret my decision a little bit in the moment, but I got over it. And once I got the basics down, I started installing apps. And I also started noticing some quirks. The apps don't actually close when you hit the X most of the time. They kind of just drop down into the dock. And the three little dots that are on the top right of a Windows window are on the left now for some reason, and my hand instinctively kept going to the right. It didn't bother me too much because eventually I just got over it and got used to it. And another thing I noticed when opening the laptop, you can use one finger. You don't have to use two hands to awkwardly open the laptop. It felt really premium, and the display, I thought it was an OLED display, but it turns out it's just a really good LED panel. It's got a 4K display, and the text is super clear, even when it's tiny. And the speakers are unlike any other laptop. They're not on the bottom, so they don't get muffled or distorted like other laptops. So you don't have to worry about that crappy distorted audio or propping it up so it sounds better. And it's also controlled by gestures, which means swiping between apps and desktops and more. The trackpad is massive, super responsive, and gives taptic feedback, which sounds a little weird at first, but it works surprisingly well. It's so good, I prefer using the trackpad over a mouse on a MacBook, something I would never do on a Windows computer. Anyways, on Windows, I always used Microsoft Edge, not Chrome. It just always felt faster to me. But when I switched to Safari, I was really impressed. Pages loaded instantly, scrolling felt smoother, and after a little bit of customization, it became my favorite browser. I know there's a ton of options on Mac for browsers, but Safari just fits my needs. Finder, though, was confusing at first. It kind of looked like File Explorer, but there's no path directory. And installing apps is completely different. Instead of setup wizards, you literally just drag the files into folders and boom, it's installed. Deleting apps is even weirder. You literally just drag it from the desktop into the trash can and it's gone. It feels really wrong and honestly feels like you're not really uninstalling the app, but that's just how macOS works. And then there's gestures, which completely changed how I use my laptop. I have mine set to where I can use 3 fingers to drag around apps and 4 fingers to see all my apps. It's honestly really easy to switch between apps like this, and it's just really intuitive to use. Feels way better than using a mouse on Windows. And the chip inside this MacBook absolutely blew me away. I went with the M4 chip inside of mine, and it has stunning performance. Compared to my old Windows laptop, it's night and day. In the year I've used it, it's never crashed, never lagged, never done anything like that, and it still runs at the same speeds. It hasn't slowed down even a single bit. And another thing that shocked me is just how cool it runs. On my lap, it never gets hot, and it's only gotten warm once. Another reason it stays so cool is because it doesn't have any fans, which even means at the maximum performance, it's gonna still stay silent. And the battery life is on a completely different level. On Windows, I'm lucky to go 3 hours of just browsing without it dying. But on my MacBook, I can go multiple days without a single charge. And even on heavier apps, my battery life still holds up. And finally, updates. On Windows, updates happen all the time. They're super annoying and literally nothing changes. But on Mac, they happen very infrequently, and they actually seem substantial. Now, as great as MacBooks are, there are definitely some flaws. First, non-Apple products do not get the same treatment. AirPods switch seamlessly, but try using non-Apple AirPods and stuff just doesn't work as well. And for people who can't afford the entire Apple ecosystem, this could definitely be a real downside. And then there's software. A lot of Windows apps just are not available on Mac, and gaming is the biggest one. If you have a big Steam library, most of those games just won't work on Mac. You either won't be able to install them or they just won't run well. And upgrading a MacBook is ridiculously expensive. Going from 13 inches to 15 inches costs $200 and an extra $800 for 2 terabytes of storage. That's pretty wild. Even the display has a catch on the Air models, because although the display is absolutely beautiful, it's only got 60 hertz, so you have to pay more for the Pro version. And lastly are the ports. You only get 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, and that's it. So if you need to hook up more devices, you're gonna have to buy a dock. So here's my final thoughts. My MacBook has been more than just a laptop. It's been an experience. And that might sound a little cringy, but it really has. From the day I bought it and still to this day, it is my favorite laptop I've ever had. My favorite computer even. It feels premium and it just works so well between all my other Apple devices. They really got me hooked and I don't really think I'd want to go back. But if you're thinking about buying one, ask yourself a few things. If your main focus is playing games, definitely do not get one. And if you're just gonna browse the web, then don't get one either. There's no reason for that. It's way too expensive to just be browsing the web with. You're better off just getting a Microsoft Surface or just a cheaper laptop. But if you're into creative work or a student at college, it's definitely a great pick. Because working with Photoshop, Final Cut Pro, and stuff like that, it works really well. And if you want great performance, an absurd battery life, and just a premium feel, get a MacBook. You really don't need a Pro either, just get an Air unless you really want the screen or if you really need a more powerful chip. Because the M4 by itself is super powerful, but that's my experience and everybody's different. And if you've switched from Windows to Mac, tell me how it was. And do you regret it or are you glad you made the move?